So the shortest possible definition of lean that I know is your entire organisation is thinking about the customer and then working together and with the customer to work out how to do better every day, all the time. And as a matter of fact, black or white, you either understand where you're trying to get to or you don't. If you do understand where you're trying to get to, you're either getting closer or you're not. If you understand where you're trying to get to and you're getting closer, you're probably using lean. Yeah.
So is that the same as the principle that Dell use of what do they call it? Mass individualisation or something?
Mass customisation.
Mass customisation.
Though this goes even beyond mass customisation. Dell was very successful with mass customisation because they were going into a market where there was next to no customisation. But where the problem we've got now is that in this particular situation, mass customisation is still relying on a production line facility, and therefore it's still got built into it economies of scale. And to be fair, this is where most automotives are as well. You know, if you want a colour that they don't have on their list, you know, so automotive's still on a mass customisation basis. When you're in service, and this is exactly to your point earlier, you're getting more and more bespoke requirements. And bespoke, if you have a mass production set of processes, bespoke costs go up. You've got economies of flow process, you just make lots of money out of it. So this is, which leads us very nicely into our first exercise. What gets in the way of you delivering something really, really great? And I want you to answer this from your customer's perspective. Now, all you've got very different definitions of customers, but what stops your customers from receiving perfect service every time right now? Go on, think of a customer complaint or a customer's frustration you haven't thought of yet. You've both written the same thing. Without talking, try and cluster them together, things that seem to be talking about roughly the same problem. Yeah, sounds great, but how? Well, there's a really simple thing you can do straight up front, as of today, forevermore. I thought communication was a good thing. I asked you to write problems. You've written good thing. I thought budget was a helpful thing. That's not a problem. Yeah. Unrealistic expectations of my company is a problem, but very woolly, isn't it? Yeah. Internal sign-off processes. Is that a good or a bad thing? I don't know. These are all done quickly and easily. Yeah, and I set you up to fail in this way, by the way. So, yeah, when you write these things, if you're trying to define a problem, if we came back in 3 weeks' time and pulled this post-it note off, or we found it sitting on the floor, it doesn't tell us anything, does it? It is not good quality data. Right, so the project is delayed as a result of both ourselves and the client waiting for the other one to move forward. Now, if we found that on the floor, we can work with that, can't we? That's not lost data. It takes a little bit more effort, doesn't it? Because it means you have to think. It means you have to write. But now you've got data that's as valuable now as, you know, when you've got your backlog, think your agile that backlog again, you've got all of these in a backlog. 6 months later, is that still true or not? Hopefully you've done some other improvement that got cleaned that one up for free. Taking the time and effort to write proper problem statements is the first most useful thing you can do to start fixing things. Because I write that problem there, and maybe your client would write it in a different way. Now what have you got to do? Got to agree between yourselves the definition of the problem. How often do you think that clears up the problem for free? Yeah. You still got to deal with the fact that why did we have the problem in the first place, but at least now what you've done is improved your communication. Yeah. The process that we've just followed and the conversation we've had before is about the definition of where you're trying to get to, the joint agreement between yourselves, your customers and your suppliers, where that is and what that looks like, and then what's the shortest route to get there. So you're producing a new piece of content Which makes you more money? The piece that took you 2 years to develop or the piece that took you 2 weeks to develop? Yeah? Thinking in terms of software rollouts. It's really, really obvious. It's the same problem. It may not be a car, but it's the same problem. You want it from the moment you understand the need for service through to the moment the service is delivered to be as short as possible. Now, how do things like handoffs and you do your bit and you do your bit and you do your bit, are those now beginning to feel a bit uncomfortable? Yeah? They don't make sense anymore, do they? So the perfect goal is, in terms of Toyota and automotive manufacturing, is how many people build a car? How many people should it take to build one car?
Ideal.
One. Yeah? But how long? That's going back to how it was when people were making cars in the garages in the 1800s, late 1800s. So how skillful does that person need to be? Exceptionally. But that's too expensive. So now what we need is one person who can build the car and it being easy. Yeah? You see how we're defining perfection? Yeah? Now that's cars, that's not your world. We need to have a look at what it is for your world. But do you see the process here of simplifying down, but make it easy for this person to succeed at all times? Now that is the heart of a successful lean program. The implications for training is the training program needs to carry on with it. There are 3 components to training within industry, and this was the methodology that was developed by the Americans to solve the problem of the fact that we've got all these women going into the factories in the war and we need them to be skilled, capable very, very quickly. Like the lens grinders used to be a 9-year apprenticeship, we've now got a woman and we've got need her operational within 4 weeks. So here's the heart of it. Training within industry, 3 things. Job instructions. How do you explain to people how to do the job? Is this relevant to the learning space? Absolutely front and centre. Job methods. How do you train people how to improve the work? Hugely relevant for your own internal processes and so forth. And then thirdly, job relations. How do you train people to be able to manage human relations, whether it's industrial relations or supervisory or those kind of things, to go together? So you use the job instruction process to deal with the technical skills and make sure that everybody's operating at the required standard, given the current knowledge of what the required standard is. But people also need to be learning the job methods approach, which is how to drive continuous improvement, because the current standard is probably still not perfect. Yeah? So we want to drive continuous improvement. You then use the job relations stuff in this to make sure that the human conversations are positive. So if we need to have a conversation, I'm a new employee of yours and I'm completely failing to live up to expectations, the conversation I have with you would hopefully be of an equivalent quality and standard than if you had been my line manager across your organisation. Because otherwise, we've got good boss, bad boss conversations going on. So what we want to standardise is the capability of our supervisors and our managers to have the tough conversations. Alright. So, if you're going to design something, design it from the perspective of how you're going to evaluate its impact first. Then, when it didn't have the desired effect, because I don't know about you, but I'm not perfect, so I don't get it right first time, we then need to do a systematic piece of studying to find out what are the primary things that are keeping us from being perfect. Then we need to study in a systematic planned order the root causes of those things. From that we will have specific data about what problems we're trying to solve. From that we can then design a series of experiments to systematically eliminate the causes of those problems. And we will also have the measurement system in place, which is the problem is still there or it's not. So we've now got the answer to that specific question. At the end of it, the benefits that will have accrued will be the direct benefits, so reduction, numbers of calls coming in, numbers of complaints, etc., and a whole tranche of benefits you can never manage. Yeah? So therefore, to go for a training need to be a training need, we have to understand that the system issue that led to the training need was actually a training need. Cultural pieces. Number one, your processes are perfectly designed to get you the results you're currently getting. So if you have complaints, you design them in. If you've got unhappy staff, you designed it in. If you've got patients dying, you designed it in, period. Apart from dying of natural causes, that is. Okay. So, people are good people, exactly your point. People are good people who want to come to work to do a good job. And even those who prove otherwise, they were once, probably, you would never have recruited them.
No.
Yeah? And if you did recruit somebody who was already a bad person, then either you were very desperate or actually the issue is your recruitment process. That's right. So you see the whole systems approach here.
Yeah.
If you start with the assumption that people want to do a good job, and therefore we create a different culture. Every time something happens, we're back to our weaving looms again, every time something happens that's a problem, the only criticism you'll get is if you don't raise it again. And then the supervisor's job is to go back up the line. Notice the customer is the best definer of whether or not you deliver quality or not. So you go back up the line and say, how come you pass this defective piece on? And then you do your train needs analysis and all those other kind of root cause analyses. So notice that train needs analysis, look at the quality criteria, it needs to be real time. It needs to be owned by the person who does the work themselves, monitored by the person who's the recipient of that work, and supported by the supervisor to eliminate the causes of failure. Nobody's got control of anything. You're just part of a flow.
Right.
The first thing is get control over what you have got control over, which is your own people. Then you go one step up and down line, depending on where the bigger opportunity is. If you're picking up loads of waste coming to you because you're getting rubbish from the people who are telling you what needs to be done, then you go upstream first. If you're getting good quality stuff but you're worried about your downstream, then you go downstream. And just bite these things off one thing at a time.